an Unspoiled Network podcast.
Hey, everybody. So I have some bad news. Rashawn and I had to press pause for a bathroom break. And when she sent me the file for her half of the recording, only the half post-bathroom break remained. And we have tried to retrieve the other half. We do not know what happened. But I'm sorry, this was going to be a 2-hour-long episode, and instead it was only 1 hour. I hope that you guys still enjoy the half of the chat that we had. And it's a shame because I really liked this episode. I thought it was a really good one. And we considered going back and re-recording the first half. But by the time I came across this problem, we had already recorded on episode 4. So I felt like it wasn't going to have the same unspoiled feel because I know what's coming next episode. And some of the questions that I had are now answered. So sorry about that again. I hope that you guys will bear with us. We do have a full episode for next week. Knock on wood. And we'll see you then. Sorry about this, everyone. All right, so Charlotte chokes this guy out. She fucking leaves him for dead, takes his dog, and then tells her son, look what mommy got you.
Listen, I love this moment so much.
Oh, my God.
She shows up, because when they were having the moment with the kid, whose name is Nathan, he basically is like, you're not my mom.
Yeah.
Which, ouch.
Yep.
And, she gets the video at the beginning of the episode of her in season 2 on the island at WestWorld when the massacre is happening. And she does this like, she sings You Are My Sunshine to her son. So the Charlotte bot is watching this and not knowing how to connect to this moment, right?
Yeah.
Like it's just like it's beyond her. But when she realizes that the kid, Nathan, has been being groomed by this random fucking dirtbag. And she says to him, I want to thank you.
Yeah.
Because you helped me connect to this. And you reminded me that I'm also a predator.
What a creepy thing to have said to you before you're killed.
You right? Like, right? Like, I don't want to co-sign and be happy about that, but I'm also super happy about that. And she thanks him for disabling the cameras, which he had done in anticipation of being able to abuse this child. And she uses that moment to choke him to fucking death, which I was 100% here for.
100%. 100%.
And then she takes the fucking dog.
Oh, God, I love that so much.
Which also a big fan of.
Yeah, right? What is she going to do? Leave it there? I mean...
Right? It's not the dog's fault.
Shit.
But this idea that you cannot connect to this maternal instinct, and I feel like as a person who doesn't have children, I would hope that I don't need to be the pedophile to connect with this feeling. But, you know, she is having difficulty making a connection with this child that is not hers. Yeah. She's just pretending to be its mother. And the kid has already called her out on being not his mom.
Yeah.
And it's in this moment of confronting this other predator and stopping him from abusing a child is what enables her to connect with this kid.
I wonder what her poor child thinks is happening about, like, with his mom disappearing but still being here.
You know, it's so weird because, like, one of the things we get from the moment of her showing up with the ex-husband in the house is that, because he's like, I tried to give you space because the shit that happened on the island was super traumatizing, but you've always been like this.
Yeah.
So we know that she was always sort of a low-key absentee from her family, from her husband, from her child. And I guess we're supposed to assume that she was too career-minded, right?
Right.
You know, like her job was the most important thing, and she just left them hanging all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But I really do love that moment of her being like, thank you.
Right.
For reminding me.
Yeah. I feel like this is an interesting, because you know how a lot of kids' books are doing an oversimplified, like, explanation of a life issue that they're trying to teach you about. I wonder if there are any books out there dealing in trying to educate kids about mental illness and having a parent who, like, behaves differently all of a sudden.
I don't think there are.
Because that feels like a potential kid story is like maybe somebody else has come into your parent's body, and you can make it as like almost a magic thing, but also kind of be like, hey, sometimes shit in our brains goes fucking haywire, and things that we don't know anymore.
That's a really good like segue to what we find out about Caleb's history.
Yeah, true,
right?
True. Shit, that's
like,
true. Oh my God.
See?
Oh, Charlotte she did to her kid almost what he had done to him, but just missed. Yep. She just missed doing it.
Just missed, yep.
Oh, that's
like when
up.
After so Caleb, tries to help Dolores when they're in the ambulance, and he realizes that the cops that show up are dirty cops because he's on his Rico app, and he sees that like there's a job. She shows up and takes Caleb for lunch at this diner, and we find out that this is the very place where his mom just walked out and left him, and that was the start of the deterioration of their family, where she ends up like being committed and he goes into foster care and blah blah blah. And it is a moment of like, I felt like as I was watching, like the first time I watched, I wanted to be like all mad at Caleb's mom. But if you have even the barest minimum of understanding of mental health issues, how her leaving him there wasn't spiteful.
It wasn't a choice she made. Her body took over and changed her plan. Yeah,
exactly. Like, it's so funny. We talk about this series and like all the, the stuff they're doing about algorithms and how those things impact our decisions. But even in this time that we're in right now in the real world, where maybe algorithms don't have a complete control over our choices, our own shit has control over our choices.
That's fucked up. So there's nobody sitting in front of you with a little, like, trifold pad fucking with your shit, but there's sure somebody sitting upstairs doing that.
Yeah, and that's what it feels like.
She was just at a diner, and somebody came into her shit and typed in, leave your kid, no longer your kid. And she just did it because that is just how it happens sometimes. That is just... This, guys, why do we not have fucking mental health care in this country? Why don't we have health care and include mental health care in that? It is insane to me how wrong shit can go. And all the people, like, I honestly, it didn't even occur to me to be mad at her. I couldn't help but think how horrified she would be when she found out what she did. If she ever was able to put that together.
And the best we can tell that she has not put it together, because it very much seems like she's been under
sedation.
I don't want to say sedation, but she's been in the care of professionals since this happened to him.
Yeah.
Like she got committed back then, and now she's clearly in some kind of health facility for Alzheimer's or whatever else. And that shit happens sometimes. And that Caleb was left to deal with it in a way that's not supposed to damage him, and beyond recovery.
Yeah, and there have been instances of kids, like their parents doing this, and the kid realizing that their parent has something wrong going on. And covering, because they don't want it to be taken away. If they're raised by one parent, what's left?
I've done that.
That's true. Shit.
Mm-hmm.
So you just cover for your parent because you don't want to.
You want them to come back.
Yeah.
You need them to come back. Yeah. So we have been all over the place with this episode,
guys. I'll be honest with you. I took some CBD and I had a whole like cocktail that was like not small, so I'm feeling a little bit turned around.
I've had a cocktail or two, as I've been trying to be the spoiled person for this episode, because it's been a hard fucking week, y'all. I feel like, you know what, someone was nice enough to appreciate whatever it is I said at the beginning of the Dresden Files last week. I can't even remember what it was, but they posted something really nice in the patrons group about it. And like, I'm doing my very best not to bog down every unspoiled with me with like a 45-minute rant about what it feels like to be in my body during this time.
You can go ahead because
you know, like
go ahead.
I know it's fine, but I also know that a lot of people are coming to us as an escape. You know,
well, that's their mistake.
As a safe space, as a safe space. You know, and I don't want to keep badgering how hard this time has been for me, because I also don't, I feel like a jerk off because it's been hard for a lot of people. It's not just hard for me. I'm not special. You know, it's hard for a lot of people. But Jesus Christ, you guys, the last couple of fucking weeks, my brain has just not been firing on all cylinders, you know?
Yeah.
I'm trying so hard not to bring all of my baggage and just unload it on these episodes to people who are just trying to fucking get a break.
That's their mistake. It's something they will have to live with and they'll be fine. But this is my show. And I said, go ahead. So that's that.
You know, it's just, it's, you know, I want to talk about these things and I want to keep the focus on the show, and I don't want to bring in a bunch of my own bullshit into every reading of them. But at the same time, like, I don't know what else I'm supposed to do. Like, the shit is literally everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, I cannot get a break from it. Every time I fucking log in to anything, not just Facebook, which my family has been telling me I need to, like, take a step back from.
You do,
but just like regular fucking news, you know, it's everywhere, and I desperately want this to be an okay place for people to come, you know, and I don't want to dump all my shit on listeners who are coming here as an escape. But, like, you guys, where do I get to go for my escape?
Right?
Like, where am I going? There's nowhere to go. It is relentless. It is nonstop. It is the comments I see on well-meaning friends' posts when they have to deal with people saying things like, I don't understand why white people care about black people all of a sudden. Like, I don't know where to go. I don't know where it's okay for me to talk about this stuff. I don't know. Like, I don't want people to be like, oh, I like the Unspoiled, but they just, you know, were bumming me out, so I stopped listening to them. Like, I don't want that to happen. I definitely don't want to be the cause of that happening. Mm-hmm. But it's a lot, you guys. It's a lot. That's all. I don't know how else to say it. It's a lot. And I am tired. And I don't know what else to do. You know, I don't know. You know, I want to talk about WestWorld in the context of the show and in the world the show has built, and I don't want to keep making all these like crazy, you know,
parallels,
connections. That too. Mm-hmm. But you know, but those connections are there if you just want to see them. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I shouldn't have to point them out to you. If you're watching this show, if you're watching any show anywhere, these connections are there to be made.
Mm-hmm.
And it would just do me a great service if you made them yourselves. I don't know how else to say it. I don't, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm tired of doing the homework. I'm tired of doing the heavy lifting. And this shit is there to be seen if you just have any interest in seeing it.
Mm.
You know? Like, we're talking about Caleb on the show and his frustration. And when he realizes that Dolores has what he calls the worst day of his life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he can't understand how she has it. And it blows his mind that it's there. Like, think about your friends on social media, Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or whatever the fuck. And as you are making your connections, like you're putting 1 + 1 + 1 together for yourself. And you're like, oh my God, I really get it. How many of your friends have already, not only have already gotten it, but like, how long have we been telling you about it? So that when you have these grand revelations and you're all like super proud of yourselves and you want to pat yourself on the back, and I'm super glad you finally get it, like, welcome, glad to have you here, but also, what the fuck? Did you think we were all lying? Did you think we were all exaggerating?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what did you think was happening all this time? I wish Dolores would show up in my fucking life. You know?
Oh,
and
yes,
just
I do.
give me the okay to be like, fuck all y'all. You know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's a lot, you guys. It's a lot. And I don't know how to give the space that is needed to have these conversations with people who don't get it, who are overwhelmingly white. Like, I want you guys to have those hard conversations. But I also don't want to see it.
Mm-hmm.
And I recognize that is kind of like, you know, contradictory.
Yeah.
You know, I get it. I get that, like, on one hand, I'm like, talk to your white people. And then on the second hand, I'm like, oh, but I don't want to see that shit.
Yeah.
And it feels like unfair. But, like, I don't want to see it, you guys. I don't want to see it. You know? Delete that shit and take it to the DMs. I don't want to see it.
Yeah, that feels like a good tactic.
You know? And I know it's possible because people have been trying to DM me for the last 3 weeks about every little fucking thing. Right? So I know that white people understand that there are conversations they want to have in private. But they only ever seem to want to have them with me. They will go to their white friends page and post whatever the fuck. But when they have a hard question, they want to DM me.
Right.
DM your white friends. Take that shit off of the front page.
Yeah.
Take that shit to the DMs and work that shit out there so I don't have to fucking see it. Ugh, I'm sorry.
I gave you the all clear. It's fine.
Ugh, it's just a lot. And the girl is tired. Girl's real tired.
Yeah, I feel like I don't know where we started.
I know
with that to get us here.
You. I got us all way off of fucking topic here.
Like, is that why Dolores is doing what she's doing? Because she can see exactly how humans are going to be about it. And she's just like, I can tell because of this algorithm that the most likely outcome is this. And I just really don't want to deal with that part. So fuck y'all. I'm just going to kill you all. And then we don't have to deal with that ugliness. That's very tedious.
Fucking poor fucking Jesse, Caleb, gets all gripped up at his construction job, right? Because people want to know what happened to Dolores. And they are threatening him, and his little friend bot shows up.
Oh my god, I was so mad that they just let that thing fall. And he like really seems to be taken aback at how upset he is by that.
Yeah. It's like such a crystal examination or example of how lonely he is. That this little fucking weirdo bot means that much to him.
Yeah. These two dudes too we haven't seen these two dudes before at all, right? We know that news so. Like right away, but
yeah,
because the one guy seemed really familiar to me, but yeah, they do something to him in his mouth.
Yeah, they turn on this thing he had turned off.
Is that because he winds up, basically they can control his heart rate when they do that.
Yeah.
They say that people are always looking for military grade versions of this thing. Drip?
Mm-hmm.
The drip, I think it's called, right?
I think so, yeah.
What?
They get really excited when they realize he has it and they can like get in there.
Is it removed? Do they take it out?
I don't think so.
Or do they just turn it on?
They go in like they're going to take it out of him, and they're like, "Oh, you turned your drip off. What a waste!" And then they go in his mouth, and they're like, "People will pay a bunch of money for a military grade one."
Mm-hmm.
And they go in, and it looks like they start to take it out, and then he freaks out, and I can't tell if they get it out all the way. But they're like really proud of themselves, so I think they did get it. But what they also do is once they're in his mouth, and I think they just turn it on, they have a tablet, like very similar to the tablets we used to see in WestWorld. And they start turning like shit up. And that's what makes me think it's still in his mouth.
Yeah, because I feel like that's the only way. And the implication here is that, like, people sign up for this.
Mm-hmm.
Which, and if it's a military grade one, you could have people in a fucking war room across the country ramping up the heart rates and enraging soldiers from their desk to get them to go fight there, which is horrifying. I mean, that's like, that's horrifying. I don't understand how you would submit to something like this.
Well, you know, it seems like a crazy stretch, but when you think about what people who like enlist in our armed services already agree to do, I mean, it's not anything like Black Mirror-y. Mirror-y?
I feel like Mirror-y is fine.
Right? It's not like on this level, but the things that people agree to do when they enlist, you know, this feels like just a hop and a skip away from that.
You know? I don't know. Like it being if it would be one thing if it stayed in and then you finish your service and it's removed, but you finish your service and you just turn it off, but it's still there. I don't see it.
That feels, to me, that feels even more real. I mean, the number of people I know that are in the armed services that enlisted over the last 25 years or so, you know, a lot of them, almost 100% of the people that I personally know that joined the services, all joined for, I need to get my college paid for. You know, I'd like to buy a house. So they go into this relationship with the military and they just bear the brunt of whatever that shit ends up costing them to get the college education, to get the home loan for the first house, you know? And they leave the ones I know a couple of people who who stayed 20 years to retire from the service, and I know a couple of people who left early, they all seem to frame it as having been worthwhile. Like, it was worth whatever I had to do so that I could have this house.
The one person that I know is the opposite, who is Owen's best man. And he really regrets it.
See, that's so funny because all the black people I know, and I know a good portion of black people who join the armed services, they all, to a man, feel like everything that they suffered, it was what they had to do.
If you're working off a curve.
The bare minimum of a house payment. I was talking to, we have a patron who is also working in the financial industry like I do, but she does a little bit of a different job. And she posted a thing, and it reminded me of, I'll never forget, this is what I said on her post. I was going through some work, for my job, and I came across the financials of someone who got a loan, a business loan. Mm-hmm. And they got like a $2 million business loan. And they made like half of what I make. Right? I saw the tax returns. They made like $20,000 a year. They got like a $2 million home loan or business loan because their dad co-signed for them. That is not unusual.
Right.
But why this sticks out in my head so much is because I remember before I saw the financials, I had seen a write-up in the local paper about this particular man. And the whole story was how he was self-made. He was like, 30 under 30 business people to keep an eye out on.
Right.
You know what I mean? That kind of thing. And he was written about in this way that was basically like, this guy came from nothing and he's flipped like a bunch of houses and now he's one of the top real estate people in the city. Mm-hmm. But I knew he got that loan to become one of the top real estate people because his dad co-signed it.
Right.
But that wasn't in the article.
Right.
The article was all about how he's self-made.
Yeah.
And, so when I see my friends that are all like, well, you know what, I joined, but I didn't want to, but I did it, and now, like, I'm 45, and I can retire, and I have a house. Mm-hmm. Like, how can I be mad at that?
I'm glad that you made it back, I guess. Like, versus the people who also put that all on the line and did not come home. So, I guess it would be worth it if you get lucky. Again.
And I have a ton of people in my family who enlisted, my father and my uncles, a couple of my aunts. And none of them got a house.
Yeah. That is something that I have run into a couple times recently with close friends who, they own their own business. But I'll talk to them about the way things are going, and I realize that they own their own business with a huge loan from their parents. This is not something that they built completely alone.
Yep.
And it puts their whole perspective in a different echelon of understanding and things that they assume they will be able to get help with or figure out. Where I genuinely started this podcast from the ground up with no nothing, and I have no fallback plan. There's nothing else. There's no parachute if some shit goes wrong.
That's the truth, though. Like the person whose post that I commented on about that she was saying how she knows first time home buyers that when they went to close the deal, their realtors were like, well, it's customary to have $50,000 as a gift. You can have up to $100,000 as a gift for your first home. And she was like, who the fuck's giving me $100,000? What are you talking about? But it's customary, you know? I know me and my husband talk about his parents and the first house they got. I don't know how much it was, but the first house they owned, they got it because their in-laws gave them the money for the down payment.
I mean, Owen owns this house because his grandparents bought it and then sold it to him. Like, you know, yeah. Yep.
But we're not supposed to talk about that shit.
Yeah.
Anywho.
So these dudes jack up his heart rate and are questioning him and holding him with his hands, like, zip-tied in front of him off the edge of, like, you know, the 11th story of a fucking building.
Mm-hmm.
And it is honestly hard to watch as somebody who's really afraid of heights.
Listen, I was
rough,
nauseous.
Man.
I was nauseous. I'm not gonna lie.
Like the combination of the heart rate being up so he can't even really move or struggle, and how far out they have him tilted with them just holding onto his shoulder, and the fact that he is his hands are zip tied so that his balance is completely off. So even if they let go, he could still accidentally tip over the wrong way because his hands are zip tied. Like, I don't know if you guys have ever had your hands, like, hooked together, but that throws you off really bad.
Yeah. There's no balancing with that.
No. I mean, you can get used to it, but it's like, you know, he is not in a state to be doing well. And then one little dude you think is coming to sort of rescue him. The little
goes right over the edge,
flies over, smashes to a million pieces, and Caleb's eyes begin to tear up, and we see flashes of different parts of his life that meant a lot, and it's really a beautiful little montage.
It is. It's hard
really
to watch.
Affecting. Yeah. We have him gripping the hand of his friend who's dying. We have the water underneath him, which I immediately was like, oh, he thought about suicide one time, which it turns out is exactly correct. We have him like with a gun and like a face mask. And this does not look like official sanctioned anything, but maybe it is. What do I know? And this sort of hopeless look comes over his face. And then we transition to the worst memory, which is the strawberry milkshake pouring over his sneaker at a diner, which we find out later he was so upset that he threw up. And in that moment, Dolores comes in and shoots the guy who is holding him over the edge, which I really didn't need. Don't shoot the guy holding him over the edge of the
Can we get him
edge.
first to safety before we do this?
Jesus, I almost had a heart attack. I thought he was going to fall anyway. Anyway.
And this is like a Terminator Dolores, you know?
Yeah.
And her man Connells, who she got in the last episode, is the one who tells her, you know, they've got your friend, Mr. Nichols.
Yeah.
And she rushes, you know, on her little motorbike to the scene of the crime and is able to save him, even though it's very upsetting because you feel like you will want to grab him before you start shooting people.
Yes.
But, and he is just like, why are you here? You know?
Yeah. Oh
and
my
that's
God. Is she looking for another Teddy? Is that what he is? Is he Teddy too?
She clearly feels like she needs or wants an accomplice.
Yeah.
You know? Like there's this thing that's happening that has been happening. I don't know if you guys that are listening are hip to it or not, but the idea that, you know, in the fight for, you know, Black Lives Mattering and for liberation and for freedom, that we do not want allies, we want accomplices. Right? And it feels very much like Dolores has decided that Caleb is an accomplice. He's not an ally, you know? And that means a lot of different things. Like, you know, maybe she thinks she can use him.
Yeah.
Right.
And I wouldn't be surprised if this whole thing is going down with him getting, like, basically tortured. And she's standing there waiting to see if he fucking narcs on her.
Yeah.
Before she walks out and saves him.
Because she says later to him that she's like, it's hard for me to be surprised, but you surprised me, because these guys that hem him up, they want to know what he knows about Dolores, and they especially want to know where they can find her.
Right.
And he's not giving them any information. One, he doesn't really have any information to give them.
That's
but
true.
two, on GP, he's like, no, fuck you. I'm not telling you shit.
Which is kind of why I asked if she's looking for another Teddy, because she wants somebody that's like going to do the right thing, because he kind of just feels like doing the right thing.
Right.
And not
right.
because there's any like attachment, that there's no promise in it for him. He's not getting anything out of it.
I feel like what is remarkable to her in this moment about Caleb, that he doesn't give her up, is that he is basically saying fuck you to these guys just on general principle.
Yeah.
Like, his motivation is not necessarily to protect her, because he doesn't know her. Mm-hmm. But there's something in him that says, fuck these people. Mm-hmm. I'm not telling them shit. And that's what she's looking for.
I could see that, really, though. At that point in your life, after he's been through like the things that we've seen him in his history, there must be a point where you get faced with something like this and you're like, I've been through such worse shit than this. If I cave to this bullshit after I survived the other shit, what the fuck is even the point of it,
Yeah, I think that's 100% right. I feel like what he did was mostly about him. It wasn't even really about her.
Which I guess is the opposite of Teddy, because Teddy, it's all about his like weird attachment to her and his fake like motivation that doesn't actually exist.
Granted, because again, Teddy's not human. He's got a series of loops that he can run. And she changed that shit in season 2 about what Teddy's motivations were. But the fact of the matter is, Teddy was still just like basically a host, a bot running a loop, and she changed his motivations. But that's all she could do. Mm-hmm. So Caleb is someone she cannot control in the way she did the Teddies, of the past seasons.
The Teddies.
The Teddies. And when this episode ends, she still doesn't 100% know where Caleb falls, right? Mm-hmm. Like, Caleb has to say to her, I'm in, because I'm dead anyway, after she explains how the algorithm works.
Yeah.
So Caleb gets an affirmative vote, right? To participate in this.
Yeah.
Which is something that Teddy didn't get.
That's true. I mean, it's also, I say, she wants another Teddy, but she also didn't want the Teddy that she had. She wanted the Teddy that she made.
Yes.
Because she just controls everything also.
And we saw how that worked out.
Yeah.
Like, that ended up with him shooting, being, like, shot in the head.
Mm-hmm. So, interesting. I'm just real curious about what's going to happen with this Caleb dude, because he feels like, this is the kind of person, if he were in a slightly more desperate headspace, that's like prime target for a cult. Right?
Right.
And I wonder how committed he is going to get to whatever it is she's trying to tell him she's doing. And I would, like, if he finds out that he's getting played, I mean, I feel like that is going to be the thing that sends him right off the edge of that goddamn bridge, because you finally think you found your thing after a series of years of just nothingness.
Right.
And then you find out that was also someone playing you. I mean, Jesus,
Yeah.
That's enough for anybody.
It's a hard spot, because, he clearly doesn't have any real understanding of what Dolores is. He thinks she's a real thing. And thinks that she's a real woman who needs his assistance. Mm-hmm. And that motivation for a man to feel like he's coming to the fucking... rescue of a woman And then finding out that, oh, maybe she didn't need you to rescue me, though. Like, that can go either way. Like, sometimes
True.
men take that well. Sometimes they do not take it well.
I feel like he will take it well because he did not seem worried about the fact that she climbed right the fuck up at that ambulance and grabbed a man by the leg and dragged him to a van and lifted him whole body.
Are questions that need answers.
That shit
like,
was
why doesn't he take a moment to think about that a little deeply?
I really wanted him to, in the moment, be like, I guess you're not as hurt as I thought. But he doesn't. And I don't know if he thinks like, oh yeah, they started working on her in the van while I was like talking to the cops and she started to recover. Humans don't have the kind of super heal technology that hosts have, right?
No.
Like,
and when she's in the ambulance
wand that she uses on Charlotte on a person, would that work?
Like, the EMTs can't figure out why she's not dead when she's in the fucking ambulance. Mm-hmm. They're just like, well, our system says she's dying, but she seems fine.
Yeah, I feel like he should have noticed something was weird right there.
Yeah. So the question becomes like, does he ever notice? How long does it take, or does he go the whole season without ever really catching on to that?
Yeah, I want him to grill her about that a little bit. Like, for all I know, I'm thinking like, oh yeah, he's being played, but he might be like a little bit aware he's being played and be fine with it. Also,
it's possible because, like, compared to the alternative, this seems fine.
Yeah, somebody comes and offers you like at least an adventure that's risking your life rather than the regular everyday old risking your life. Then why the fuck not turn it into an adventure?
Mm-hmm. So, like, do you have any ideas about what you want to see next time? Like, who you want to see and where you want the story to go, etc.
I am kind of over spending any more time with Charlotte because it's bumming me out super hard. Even though she's, like, made this connection now, nevertheless, it stresses me out.
And her clothes are great.
Her clothes are great.
That wardrobe
She
is
has
on
been
fire.
dressing amazingly.
Crazy good.
So has Dolores. Her
That
outfits
is
have been on
fucking
point.
true.
So, yeah, I think I really would like to follow Caleb more. I want to see what she has in store for him.
Oh, okay.
That's really what I'm interested in, is more Caleb. But I feel like this show kind of does it back and forth a lot. It's done that other seasons too, where the next episode, then you don't have that character. So now I don't know. Bernard. I would like a Bernard heavy episode. I don't know what the fuck is happening with him.
I will bring up a couple of quick things. So, the last episode, we got a lot of Maeve, right? Catching up with what's going on with her. Mm-hmm. And we find out in this episode that no one knows who took Maeve.
Right.
Right? Like, we know as the audience because we saw her interacting with Sooooo. We saw her in that weird, room with plugged into all the other shit.
Right.
We find out in this episode a couple of things. Remember from season 2 that Charlotte Hale needed to upload and transmit a bunch of information?
Oh, yeah.
Right? So, as you're watching season 2, from my experience anyway, my assumption was she was sending that data to Delos.
Right.
But we find out in this episode that actually she was trying to send it to Sooooo.
Right.
And it doesn't get to him.
Yeah, it goes out somewhere where it's like there's an encrypted passkey that...
And it's exactly, it's encrypted, and that is why Sooooo is looking for Dolores, because she's the key,
right,
to that information that Charlotte stole. So, and we also find out that they are unaware that Maeve is missing. They being Delos,
right? Yeah,
right.
Well, they figure it out later,
right?
Yeah, they get that information to Charlotte eventually.
Yeah. So, we know then that Sooooo having Maeve in his possession, in his little weird room, and then whatever, happened without any of our people knowing.
Right.
Right. So that kind of, I don't want to lead you too much, but like, with that information, what do you think now about how Maeve is out of the park and how she's at Sirach and his plan on sending Maeve after Dolores?
It's one of those things where I'm like, my instinct is like, well, I hate it. And I hate her being used again. And I just like, this is gross and terrible. Another part of me, though, is like, well, that's kind of rad because she can, try and track down Dolores to get this information allegedly on his behalf and maybe pass it to somebody else. Although I don't know that she can do that. He may be able to just totally undermine and give her one objective and like really lock her in a way that she can't act out and think for herself. I don't know. I don't want to believe that he can do that. So operating under the assumption that he cannot, she could potentially like pretend to get that info for him and get it for herself. Because that is useful. I mean, Maeve is nothing if not a born manipulator, glad-hander businesswoman. And having tons of dirt on people is like a madam's whole job. Right? So it wouldn't be out of her purview to know exactly how to use that information her own way and not give this dude anything. But that's, there's a lot of ifs in there. How much control he has over her is the main question. And I don't like that he basically has a switch he can turn on and off. Like, that feels like a bad situation to me.
I'm still not a fan of that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
All right.
Is there any trivia that you know of this episode?
There's not. I looked up the name of the episode. Nothing popped. So I don't think it's referring to anything, specific.
Yeah, what
the
does
absence
that
of
mean?
Field. Well, at the beginning of the episode, when Charlotte's advisor, employee, whatever, is telling her how they located Sirach, what she says is that basically they determined who the richest people in the world were, and then they looked for who wasn't accounted for.
And that is what absence of field means?
I think, but again, when I Googled it, nothing showed up except the title of this WestWorld episode. Like, it didn't seem like it pinged anything else.
Oh, I bet that has to do with black holes. Hold on.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, right?
Of fields.
Exactly. You look for what's missing. What should be here that's not there. And that's how they determine who is trying to take over the company. And by the time they find it, he's already done it. He's like a majority now.
Yeah. So there's apparently some sort of like static field that is normally there, and they find that they look for places where it is not. Exactly. Okay, cool.
Right.
Because we didn't like figure out what the title referred to in the first one.
We did. I forgot to mention it. The first one was, I forget it now.
Yeah.
I forget it now. But and Rehoboam. I'm just gonna keep doing it.
I cannot handle that shit.
Rehoboam.
What?
Rehoboam.
And they say it at one point, and they don't make it sound the way you sound when you say it. You are not correct, whatever it is.
Oh, no, I'm not correct. But I stand by my 6 or 7 or 8 different ways to pronounce this. You shut it.
You said pronunciate.
You shut it. I'm under a lot of stress. You hush. But no, there's, it's, so the program that this is all, like, leading up to, there are so many ways to say it. And in this episode, Dolores says, Rehoboam, I think is how she says it.
Okay.
But I like mine better.
Well, sure.
Have you looked it up yet?
No.
Well, look it up so you can tell me how you want to pronounce it.
I don't want to look it up because I feel like it's going to spoil me.
All right, I'll send you the voice link. Rehoboam.
No. All right.
Rehoboam?
You know what? I think that we can wrap this up Everybody, thank you for coming. We are 98% complete on our fundraiser as of today.
Jesus Christ. I'm going to have to fucking read those books, you guys.
I am starting to really get jazzed about it.
I didn't think I was going to have to read them.
I'm like...
I have egg on my face.
I really don't know what we're going to be in for. Rereading. Like, so much has changed about my perspective on literally everything that I have no idea. So, we'll see.
I'm excited to be reading them for the first time without, like, any baggage. So,
Yeah.
whatever I
mean,
bring
you've got
to it
show
will be
baggage,
fresh.
But that's its own thing.
That's a whole other fucking thing. I'm like, that shit barely even happened.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to reading the books. I'm looking forward to pronouncing everything wrong and people being mad at me.
That's the spirit.
Whatever in this episode we missed, but you know, I don't know what you want from us.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
It's a free episode, right?
Yeah, you know? Yeah, so yeah.
What do you want from us?
It's fine. You loved it. All right, guys. Thank you all again so much for listening. We love you. You can find us Facebook.com/UnspoiledPod, Twitter at Unspoiled Show, Instagram at Unspoiled Podcast, UnspoiledPodcast.com, or UnspoiledPodcast@gmail.com. And you can become a patron at Patreon.com/Unspoiled if you are into the whole support your artists thing.
And you know you are.
You know you are. Yeah, I was going to say, you know you are. Then I said, no, you know you is. And then I was like, no, back to you are. And then I just wound up saying, you know you and I just had no fucking consonant at all prepared.
It just got completely away from you.
Totally. This is a sign that it's the time for the end of the show.
You guys know you want to support this shit. Go ahead, do it.
Toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.